You have heard this before, maybe through an open window on a spring morning, maybe in a forest where the light came through the trees in a way that made you stop walking. Maybe you recorded it once on your phone, trying to capture something that felt in that moment like proof that the world was not entirely indifferent to your existence. The song lasted 11 seconds. In those 11 seconds, the male superb fairywren produced 34 distinct acoustic elements, modulated across 4 separate frequency ranges, timed to within milliseconds of biological precision. You heard beauty. The female heard something entirely different. She heard a competitive resume, a threat assessment, a genetic advertisement calibrated over 40 million years of evolutionary pressure to bypass her conscious evaluation and speak directly to the part of her brain that makes decisions before she knows she's making them. And the male singing it? He was not thinking about her at all. He was thinking about the male in the next tree. We have spent centuries listening to birdsong and hearing love. We have written poetry about it. We have used it as evidence that nature is romantic, that the universe contains at some fundamental level a tendency toward beauty and connection. What if we were the only ones in that story? What if the song was never about her? The idea that animals sing, display, and perform for love is one of the oldest and most deeply embedded assumptions in human natural history. Darwin himself was enchanted by it. In 1871, in The Descent of Man, he proposed that birdsong was the evolutionary precursor to human music, that male birds sang to females the way human men wrote sonnets. He called it aesthetic selection, the idea that beauty itself was a force in nature, that females chose mates based on something that functioned in their nervous systems like pleasure. It was a beautiful theory. It was also in critical ways wrong. Not entirely, not simply, but wrong in the way that matters most. Wrong about who the audience was. For decades, ornithologists studying songbirds operated under what seemed like an obvious assumption. The song was directed at the female. She was the chooser. He was the performer. The transaction was reproductive. The currency was beauty. Then researchers began doing something that changed everything. They started playing recorded birdsong back to males. Not to females, to males. And the males, the singers, the performers, the supposedly lovesick suitors, reacted with immediate escalating aggression, elevated testosterone, increased cortisol, territorial displays. In some species, physical attacks on the speaker producing the sound. The song that you heard as a love letter was, to the male who sang it, primarily a weapon, a territorial broadcast, a dominance signal. A warning dressed in frequency and delivered at dawn because dawn is when the acoustic landscape is clearest and the message travels furthest. The female was not the recipient. She was the prize the song was fighting over. Let's be precise about what is actually happening inside the male bird when he sings. In songbirds, vocal production is controlled by a dedicated neural circuit called the song system, a series of interconnected brain nuclei that have no direct equivalent in the human brain. The primary motor pathway, running from the HVC nucleus through the robust nucleus of the archopallium to the syrinx, controls the physical production of sound with a precision that makes human speech look blunt. But here is what the neurochemistry tells us. During singing, male testosterone levels spike. Aggression circuits activate. The same neurological state that prepares an animal for combat is the state that produces the most elaborate, most beautiful song. Beauty in this system is not separate from aggression. It is aggression, refined, encoded, broadcast at a frequency the rival cannot ignore and the female cannot consciously resist. Now consider the humpback whale. Humpback males produce the longest, most complex vocalizations of any animal on Earth. A single song can last up to 22 hours. It evolves in real time. Males in a population modify their songs together, like a cultural trend, with new elements spreading across ocean basins within a single breeding season. For decades, we called these love songs. We recorded them. We put them on Voyager. We used them as evidence that the universe, if it ever received our message, would understand that we came from a place where creatures sang to each other across dark water. The problem is that humpback songs are produced almost exclusively by males, and they are produced almost exclusively in the presence of other males. When researchers tracked the movement patterns of singing whales and their nearest neighbors, they found something that devastated the romantic interpretation. The closest animal to a singing male was, in the majority of documented cases, another male. Not a female waiting to be courted, a rival, listening, assessing, sometimes approaching, sometimes retreating. The song was not a love letter cast into the ocean. It was a negotiation between males about space, dominance, and reproductive access, conducted in a medium so beautiful that humans spent a century mishearing it entirely. But here is where it becomes philosophically complicated. The female is not passive in this system. She is not simply the object that the song fights over. Research on species from zebra finches to nightingales has shown that female brains contain their own song processing circuitry, regions that evaluate not just the presence of a song, but its complexity, its novelty, its deviation from the population average. Her brain is, in a very real neurological sense, a judge. And what she is judging is not love. She is running an unconscious computation, measuring the male's developmental health, his parasite load, his genetic distance from her own genome, his ability to hold a territory, all encoded in acoustic variables she has been calibrated by 40 million years of evolution to detect. She does not experience this as calculation. She experiences it as preference, as attraction, as something that, if she had language, she might call feeling. Which brings us to the cuttlefish. Male cuttlefish in the presence of a rival male and a female will do something that should stop you cold. They will display the courtship coloration pattern on the side of their body facing the female, rippling, iridescent, unmistakably attractive, and simultaneously on the side of their body facing the rival male, they will display aggressive threat coloration. Two different messages, two different audiences, delivered at the same moment through the same body. A creature with no centralized brain structure, no cortex, no language, running a real-time social deception so sophisticated it requires holding two contradictory performances simultaneously. If a human did this, we would call it manipulation. We would call it duplicity. We would call it, depending on the context, charm. Here is what we have actually been listening to all this time. Not love, not in the way we mean it, but something older than love. Something that love, as we experience it, was built on top of, the way a city is built on geology it no longer remembers. Beneath every human romantic gesture, evolutionary biology finds the same architecture. The gift, the display, the performance of resources and vitality. The song at its core, in every species that sings it, is the same broadcast. I am strong. I am healthy. I will survive. Choose me. We dressed it in candlelight and poetry and the word forever. But the signal underneath has not changed in 40 million years. This is not cynicism. This is something more interesting than cynicism. Because the female fairywren, evaluating those 34 acoustic elements in 11 seconds, is not doing something lesser than the human who hears beauty in the same sound. She is doing something different. She is running a computation of extraordinary sophistication, one that has been refined by evolutionary pressure into a form of intelligence we are only beginning to understand. Her experience of that song, whatever it feels like from the inside, whatever qualia arise in her nervous system when those frequencies hit the right neural pathways, is real. It is not a lesser version of human aesthetic experience. It is its own thing, ancient, precise, calibrated to a reality we cannot fully enter. And the male who sings it, locked in his testosterone-flooded, rival-focused, dawn-lit performance, is he experiencing something we would recognize? Probably not love. Probably something closer to the feeling before a confrontation. The electric, focused, fully alive sensation of a body preparing to compete for everything it has. Which, if you have ever been in love, may not sound entirely unfamiliar. We heard the song and we wrote the story we needed. A story about beauty, about connection, about a world that sings because it feels. And maybe, just maybe, we were not entirely wrong. We were just listening to the wrong singer.